displaying the glory of God's creation by exploring America one park at a time. Welcome to Parking Full Time with Big Dave, the park's professor. 10th hole. The par and distance are at the top of the screen. The back nine starts with a sequence of short but really tight holes. You can see the basket coming up here, and you can see all of the trees around the basket. These first few holes here on the back nine are really a lot of poke and pray, and they're not my favorite holes on this course. I just throw your disc and hope you get a good ricochet off of a tree. There's the 10th basket and the view back towards the tee. The 11th hole is not quite as tight as the 10th hole, but it is the same basic flavor. There's still a lot of trees around here. Also, there are dense woods on either side of the fairway, and so if you get off the fairway either direction, that's going to be a tough recovery throw and maybe even a lost disc. I do want to welcome you back to Parking Full Time. I am Big Dave, the park's professor. There's the 11th basket and the view back to the tee. The 12th hole starts out as more of the same. You see this really tight cluster of trees here just in front of the tee. And it also plays slightly downhill. But the nice thing about this hole is if somehow you can manage to get your way through this tight cluster of trees, this hole actually really opens up. And there's quite a bit of space in front of the basket. That was the 13th tee we just passed off there to the left. We'll see that momentarily. We are at Brook County Park. We are between Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, Michigan, and so we're in southwest Michigan. This park is actually owned and maintained by Kalamazoo County, and so we are in eastern Kalamazoo County. The 13th hole is more open than the previous holes. There's a log down across the fairway, and so we're going to jump over the log, and then we're going to head up to the basket. There are a couple of realistic routes where you could get a disc through these trees here. There's a direct route, and then there's a route kind of off to the right. And so this hole is a little more reasonable in terms of the tightness than the previous holes. Honestly, those tight holes at the beginning of the middle nine are really not my favorite holes on this course. The 14th hole is a gradual but persistent dogleg left. And even though there are quite a few trees around here, there is actually a well-defined fairway that goes all the way from the tee all the way up to the basket. And the previous holes didn't have that, so this hole at least feels a little more open than the previous holes. I captured this video on Tuesday, October the 17th, and it was a damp, chilly day in the upper 40s when I came here and walked about this course. The 15th hole is similar in spirit to the previous hole. There is a cluster of trees here directly between the tee and basket, and so you have to decide, do I want to go to the right of the cluster, which is where we're walking here. There is also a possible line of play off to the left of the cluster. And either of those lines could work, but you have to make a choice and then pick a throw and commit to a throw. There's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The 16th hole is the most open hole since the 8th hole. What you need here is you need a slight left to right throw. And if you can do that, if you can execute a slight left to right throw, this should get you up by the basket, and therefore it should set up a nice birdie opportunity. Normally I'd say this is kind of a boring hole, but actually after all of the really tight holes that we saw earlier here on the middle nine, this is actually kind of a nice change of pace. There's the basket and the view back to the tee. We go back into the woods now for the 17th hole. This is by far the longest tight hole on this course. You can see there's a tight gap in the trees here that we're gonna walk through. And so you need probably a right to left disc flight in order to get through that gap. But if you can get through that gap, then this hole really starts to open up. And you've got a little bit of room to maneuver with here. And you can get all the way up to the basket. And so if you can get through that gap, even though it's a tight gap, then you're really in business on this hole. This is actually a really nice hole. It's not an easy hole, but it's a nice hole. It's one of my favorite holes on the middle nine. 18th and final hole on the middle nine. This hole plays slightly downhill, and it starts out in this narrow chute of trees, but once we get past this last tree off here to the right, then this hole really opens up. And it's really a very open hole and even slightly uphill to get to the basket. I need to say a word about the course route here. There are 24 holes on this course, and you end up back at the parking lot 3 times, and the second time is after the 18th hole here. In fact, that's the parking lot that you can see directly behind the basket. And so I've divided this course up into 3 videos. We did the front 9, this is the middle 9, and then the last video is going to be the back 6. We'll release that next week. That's the end of the middle 9. I will see you on the back 6. Until then, have a great afternoon, take care, and Lord bless.